Okay, good evening once again. It's time like maybe we can start. For the people who are joining late, they could just join and then listen. We shall start with a small introduction like what this session is going to be totally about. I hope you guys have some awareness about what is Dynamo and what are the uses of Dynamo inside Revit. And this would be some advanced session in Dynamo. With Dynamo, you can automate a lot of things inside Revit. And then what Dynamo cannot do, but what we can do with the help of Python and why Python, what you need to learn inside Python and where you could find the resources and what type of code need to be written inside Python, because there is something called as Revit API. For people who doesn't have any knowledge about Revit API, you will see an introduction of what it is and what it will do and how shall we utilize this and where is the documentation for this Revit API is properly available, and then how shall we interpret that inside Python. So this is going to be the total agenda of today's session. We shall divide it into maybe two parts. The first part may be a small introduction to Python, uh, Python as a programming language, some basic syntax, how to play with Python. And the second part will be jumping into Revit and with the help of this Python, what all the stuffs you can do. And by the end of the session, you will be getting the recorded session with this. Please do register it with the BIM Era so that you don't miss the chance of getting this recording session. So this session has actually been presented from BIM Era. We actually do some professional trainings with Autodesk products, with Dynamo, and also Python, C# pattern creation, and lot. And to speak about myself, my name is Bhuvan, and I work as a C# pattern developer within Revit, Navisworks, and other Autodesk products. So, what are we actually going to focus today, and what is this course aiming at people at which designation, and who are all the people who will be benefited from Dynamo? If you are a BIM modeler, you can use this Dynamo for actual modeling or sheet generations. Or if you are a structural or MEP engineer or even an architect, for some engineering principles, if you are still depending upon the Excel sheets, you can automate those processes inside Dynamo because all the data will be available in the Revit. You can use the data inside Revit and then do the engineering calculations directly over here with the help of Dynamo. And if you are a BIM coordinator, you can do model exports, you can do class reductions automatically without doing it manually. Repeat it for every week or every day. And if you are a BIM manager, if you don't want to open Revit, but you wanted to have the insight of what is happening inside a Revit model, like how many elements are created, who created what, and what is the progress of what's happening daily, like similar to a dashboard. If you wanted to have something like that, then again you can use Dynamo. But what mainly you have to know is like not just Dynamo, you have to know combinedly Dynamo plus Python, because with the help of Dynamo you can do a lot of things, but there are some restrictions. Because for people who have seen Dynamo might know how Dynamo might look like. This is a basic Dynamo screen, and how did I open it? It is in the Manage tab. If you go to the top right corner, you will see a Dynamo tab present here. Previously it was in the add-ins, and later they have moved it to this Dynamo, and this comes by default when you install Revit with this. And as like Revit, Dynamo is also having versions, and the version of Revit what I am using is like 2020.2, and the version of Dynamo what I have is like 2.3. This might vary for you. If you are using 2020, you might have 2.1, whereas in 2018 it's like 2.02 or 2.03. Same way how Revit model behaves with the version control. If you open a 2018 model and then try to open the same 2018 model with 2019, you have to upgrade it first. Only then you can utilize the features whatever present in there. And you can't open a 2019 model inside a 2018 model. Upgrading is fine, downgrading is not allowed. Same thing for Dynamo. Upgrading is fine, downgrading is also sometimes fine unless and until you don't have nodes that has been updated in the recent version. Okay. So when you open Dynamo, this is how it would be, not directly like this. You will see a open screen. You can click on this new so that you will have a Dynamo screen open. The very first thing you should do when you open a Dynamo is like go down to this bottom left corner, change this to manual. And what is the difference between this automatic and manual? If it is kept in automatic mode, whenever you do some changes here, like placing some nodes, doing some operations with this node, the moment when you start placing the node, the script will start executing, and whatever changes you do, instantly it will execute and try to give you the results. If you are playing with geometries, that could be helpful, but most of the time we don't want Dynamo to take control over us. You have to stipulate a process, you have to create nodes, and only when you feel like, okay, I have did something, now I will run this code and then test it is what will the result be. So always change it to manual, that is advised. So you do some changes and press this run, only then this Dynamo script will be executed. Okay, how to place a node inside Dynamo, I hope everybody knows it, but yes, let's see a small brief of it. You can just right click on the screen and then start typing the node names. Like if I want to select some elements from the model, I can say select model element. With the help of this node, what I can do, I can press this select button. You can see it is grayed out. If I go into Revit, you can see the Revit has entered into selection mode. How do I know that? Everything else is grayed out and it is asking for me to select a model element. So if I select the element, in this case I'm selecting a wall. If I go back to Dynamo, you can see the node has been changed in color, and then now it is giving me, it has selected an element with this corresponding element ID. So how do I see the output of this node? I can just go down here and press this pin. For now, since I haven't run the script even once, the output is null. Null means nothing. If I run this code again, you shall see the wall which I selected with the help of this node is being seen as an output. So this is how you place Dynamo nodes. You run that and then see what output it is. To visualizing the output, either you can directly go down and pin this one, or there is a separate node called as watch, with which you can connect this output to this as an input. This is how you connect things. These are called as connectors. And how does this connectors work? Let me just show you again. If I left click on this, you can see I can have a connector. It is asking me to connect it to some port. And again, if I hover my mouse over this and then connect it to this input port, now if I run this, the same output can be visualized here. These are some very basic Dynamo things. For the people who know this, that's totally fine. If you are knowing this for the very first time, just listen like this is how it is done. Okay, you can move your screen with by pressing the middle button of your mouse, like how you do in Dynamo, how do you in Revit. So we have got a model element from there, but this is generally with Dynamo. This session is mainly focusing on Python and Revit API. How shall we play with this Python? So for that you need to know some basics of Python. And where will you write the Python code inside Dynamo? For creating a node, you have this workspace. You right click on this and then start typing the node name. You have the node. Same way, there should be an editor where you write your Python code. Okay. So if I right click on this and then start typing Python, you can see I can place a Python node here. Python node looks like a very common node. To give a similarity, we have seen a node called as list.create. These nodes actually look very similar. And what is this node will be doing? This is having an input ports. You can press on this plus button and minus button to toggle with the number of inputs. If I have these many inputs and I start connecting each and every data to this item source, and then if I run this code, I'll just create a code block. And for the people who don't know how to create a code block, just do a double left click. You will place a code block. That's a shortcut. Or else you can also right click on that and then say code block. Both will work. So I create a variable here and I create a number here. I can connect these two in first input port and second input port, get rid of others. Then if I run this code, if I see the output, it is creating a list with what are all the elements I am connecting into it. Okay. Similarly, Python node will also behave like this. You can increase or decrease the number of inputs with which input you are connecting it to. You have to write a code, some logical code inside this by using the input whatever you got through this input port, and then make some algorithm or logical code inside that, and then you will get a desired output. If you are the guys who already know Dynamo, you have been doing it only with the name of the nodes. The logic will be take care of the node directly, but now when you come to Python, you have to define the logic by yourself. You have been searching for Dynamo node names here. Now you have to write commands, hard code commands. And what is the advantage of it? because Dynamo nodes are limited to some extent. There are only certain functionalities of Revit you can access with Dynamo nodes. If you wanted to access some more functionality, the default way or the very first thing you will do is like package nodes. There is a package manager here. If you open a package manager and search for a package, there are a lot of external libraries available for free. You can download some. I have some here like Archilab, BIM nodes, Clockwork, Rhythm. There are a lot of common libraries. You can download that libraries. That library will be like an additionally written code and then provided it in terms of node. Okay, you can use those nodes and then access some of the function which you feel is already not available in Dynamo. But one great disadvantage of using packages is you can use n number of packages when you write your code, but if there is a chance like you are creating the script and then providing it for a third party, or you are going to share it with your colleague or a client or a contractor, and then if they are going to use it, the very first thing they have to do is like they have to go and download all the package which you have used to create the script. So you have to make note of all the packages and then provide them a very big list for them to install as a prerequisite. And these package notes are also keep updating. If a person is very new to a Dynamo and then you are providing the script for them to try it on, people will generally hesitate, and when it specifically gives error, they used to frighten. They are afraid of it. When someone opens it and then see notes in color of yellows and red, and there is giving warning, and then they come back to you and then say this is a very big list, go and download all these things, only then this will work. Sometimes people feel like, okay, I will do it manually rather than putting all these stuffs back one after the other. So avoiding package notes is a good practice while write your script. How shall we avoid packages? Most of the packages are written with Python. There are two different types of custom nodes. One, it is written with Python, or it is directly written with C sharp. C sharp is another programming language. It was those nodes are called as zero touch nodes. If this is a Python code, you can edit that code. You can just right click on this and then say edit. You will see what is written inside that. Same way for a custom node, it will you can also edit a custom node and see how they have written it. But for some nodes, zero touch node will be looking more or less like this. You can't edit a default Dynamo node same way you can't edit a zero touch node. So there are two ways of creating a custom node. If that is a Python code, you can actually go and see the Python code. So in order to get rid of packages, one thing people generally follow is like they copy the Python code inside that custom node and place it inside this Dynamo and then use it. Or else, if you know how to create your own Python code, you are actually independent of packages and you have the liberty of writing your own code rather than going into a Dynamo forum or to go to Google and then search, I need this feature, which package is providing me this feature. So you are not going to be dependent on someone else to create a feature and provide it to you. So those people also refer the Revit API and write the code. So if you know how to refer the Revit API and if you know to write a code in Python, you yourself can create your own nodes instead of relying on others. So that is the great advantage. So very first thing what you need to know Python. So what is Python? Python is a very popular programming language and it is the most easiest programming language for a beginner or a fresher to learn. So when I started my journey inside this Dynamo and started learning this Python, I was also frightened like Python is going to be very difficult programming language. I'm not a CS guy. I was a civil engineer by default. Before starting all these things and creating going into this program, I was a civil engineer and I don't have any programming background. So I was little bit hesitant to go inside this Python field. But after entering and then seeing what Python really is, it's actually very easy. It's not that difficult as people think or people say about or talk about. It's very simple like speaking English. Python is a programming language, nothing but it is a way of communicating with your PC. Now I am communicating with you. You guys might have come from different regions. You guys might speak different languages. But you are listening to me and you are understanding me because we speak in a common language which we both understand. Same way, we need to speak in a language so that the computer will understand what we are trying to convey and what we are asking the computer to do. Okay, so Python is one among that. There are a lot of programming languages. Python is just one of the tool we can say. Again, when it comes to Python, what type of Python we are using inside this Dynamo environment? There are different types of Python. Should not say types, we should say implementations. There are different implementations of Python. We have C Python, we have J Python, we have Anaconda Python, we have Mini Python, and the Python which we are going to use inside Dynamo is Iron Python, IRON, Iron Python or Iron Python, whatever you call. And what is this Iron Python specifically will do? It will interact with .NET libraries. And what is .NET libraries again? The Revit API, which I am speaking right now, which we are going to use today, is a .NET library. .NET is nothing but a programming platform developed by Microsoft. Okay, so they have written some libraries by default, and Revit API is like that is not developed by Microsoft, developed by Autodesk, but that is in the format of .NET, to be specific C#. So in order to understand those libraries, in order to interact with those libraries, by default they are not Python code, they are different programming language codes. But we are going to use that with another programming language like Python. How can you combine two different programming languages and access libraries? Like how do you create a link? So you need to have a common platform, something like that. So Iron Python is capable of taking care of that stuff. I can hear some voices. Could you guys please unmute yourself if you don't have any doubts? Okay, let's continue. I think I still have. I think it's Deepak. Deepak, can you hear me?
You can mute everyone.
Can
You
guys
can
please
you can mute everyone.
No, I'm trying, but I can't.
Yeah, you can mute everyone.
Yeah, I can, but I'm trying.
Mute all.
I guess. Yeah, it worked. Okay, thanks. Let's get back to the business. Like we are speaking about Iron Python, and the use of this Iron Python is to speak with .NET libraries. Don't get confused with this guy is introducing me a lot of programming terminologies. He said Revit API, he said suddenly Python, and he's again telling .NET. Nothing like that. These are all programming platforms, and you don't have to get in deep into it. You are not a programmer, and I am not a programmer by default. We are not here to create software. We are not going to create web applications, desktop applications, cloud applications, nothing like that. We are here to use some basic programming language inside Revit, like how you use Dynamo. If you are using Dynamo, you are already using a visual programming tool. Now we are just going to remove this visual. Now we are going to write direct programming, but very simple programming. So there is no depth understanding needed to write your own first Python code. So first let's see what is Python, what are the basic syntaxes in Python. I can start writing my Python code inside here, but that might not be visible in cases. So I will write my Python code inside this environment. We call this as Visual Studio Code. And don't worry about this. You don't have to have this to write a Python code. In the second part of the session, obviously I'm going to write my code over there. But before going into that, for some basic Python stuffs, I used to do it here, so that the font sizes might be very visible for you guys to get a better understanding. So this is an environment where they used to write programming, direct programming codes. In this case, I'm using it for Python. Okay, when it comes to Python, the first thing you have to know is like data types. If you are already using Dynamo, then you might have known what is data types. If I go back to Dynamo, these two are actually different data types. If you have noticed, I have written this with quotations and I have written this without quotations. And the thing that I written it with quotations is what we call it as strings. String is nothing but an alphanumeric value. Alphanumeric value, it could be alphabet, it could be in numbers, or it could be a combination of both, but it is considered as a alphabets or characters that won't do arithmetic operations. Rather, like if you have a name, that name is a string. If you have an age, that age is a number. That's the basic difference. Strings are nothing but alphabets or alphanumerics, and numbers are direct numbers. 1 2 3 is a number, 1 plus 1 is a number, 1 into 5 is a number, and whatever things which you can do mathematical operations comes under number. And when you speak about numbers, again numbers is having certain subdivisions. Before going to that, we will first see what is a string, how to create your string. Okay, I can say open this quotation mark and then start typing hello. This is the string. Whatever I put it inside a quotation mark is what we call it as string. Okay, so if I created a string, I need that string to be used somewhere else. Say for example, I'm going to print something so that something will be visible here. There is a command called as print, which you cannot use inside Dynamo. This is just for your reference so that you will be seeing it here. If I print hello, you can see hello is printed here. So hello is a string, I can print it. I can do it in this way, or else I can assign it to a variable first and then I can use that variable wherever I want it. What is variable? Variable is nothing but a data type. You can call yourself as a variable because you store some data. You have your name, you have your age, you have your professional, you have your own address, you have places, you have your family. All these things are the memory what you have. So you by yourself is a database, or you are by default is a place where data has been stored. Same way, variable is also a place where data can be stored temporarily. So how to create a variable? I can name them first. I can say a is equals to hi. So I am creating a data type as a string. So this is a value. I'm going to store this value inside a variable called as a. So now a is equals to I. If I print a, does anybody guess the result? If I print it, what will be printed? Will it print a or will it print hi? You can answer either in chat
Hi.
box, yeah, either through microphone, whatever you wish to. So let's try to print. I am
It's
having an
Hi.
issue.
it's a hi.
Yeah, you guys are right. It's hi. How does it know that when I say print a, it should print hi? Because a is just a data variable which has a value. So when I say print a, it prints the value instead of the name directly. Okay.
Yeah.
So now if I say a is equals to hello, now if I print a, will it print hi or will it print hello or will it print a? Any
I
answers?
guess it will print both.
Okay, that might be also an option. So you say that might print both. Okay, let's try. It prints hello. Then where is that hi gone? So this is like overwriting. This is the behavior of Python. Python is executed line by line. So at the line 3, you said a is equals to hi, but when it comes to line 4, you again say a is equals to hello. So this variable is not going to be constant every time. This variable is what we call it as temporary memory. At one point of time, you say it is hi, and the next moment you are specifying a is equals to hello. So variables can be overridden anytime. So what is the last data type that is contained in the variable is going to be output when you call for it. So when I say print a, it knows a is equals to hello. That is what it has been stored lastly in that variable. So if I say instead of a is equals to hello and then say a is equals to 1 2 3, now what will be the result if I print a? Anyone?
1, 2, 3.
Okay, that's right. Yes, you are right. It's 1 2 3. So you got the logic, and you can see the difference. Like I said hi with without within quotation, and when I say 1 2 3, I said it without quotation. And when I say a, it is a string, and when I say 1 2 3, it is an integer. Integer is a format of number. All whole numbers are called as integers. 1 2 10 15,000 1 lakh 10,000, all these things are whole numbers. Whole numbers are called as integers. When you call for numbers or when you store numbers, you don't have to specify quotation mark. Okay, is it possible to say a is equals to hi without quotation mark? Because without quotation mark work for numbers. So what will be the result if I print a? Anyone?
Other variable.
So it will print another variable like hi.
1 to 3.
No, it's a variable one.
It gives me an error saying like hi is not defined, which means that the Python doesn't know what hi is. You are saying a is equals to hi, that's fine, but what is this hi representing? Like how a is a variable, hi is also becoming another variable, but this variable is not defined inside this context, so this Python code doesn't know hi. Okay, but what if I say hi is equals to 456, and now if I say a is equals to hi, and now if I print a, what will be the result?
456.
Okay,
456.
yes, it is 456. Now it is not giving me errors because now the Python knows what hi is. You can say hi, you can say hello. It is not giving you the direct meaning what you understand in English language. This is just a variable. This variable could be anything. There is certain naming convention for this variable. It can start with small letters, it can start with capital letters, it can have numbers inside it, it can have underscores inside this, but it should not have spaces. Can I say hi space h space hi I and then say 456, and if I print it, syntax error. H with hi, it is saying invalid syntax. So while giving names for variables, there is a certain rule set you need to follow. You should not give spaces in between. Either it could be small letters or capital letters. Even if you say HII, nothing like that. But you have to say the same thing here. The code will still work because you are following the same name everywhere. You need to have this uniformity. You can have small letters or capital letters. You can have a hi 1 2 3, and you have to say hi 1 2 3 here. It works. You can say hi underscore 1 2 3, hi underscore 1 2 3. That works. But what if I say 1 2 3 hi 1 2 3 hi? You can clearly see that it is turning into red, which means it is an error. These behaviors are coming from this IDE, whereas if you do it in the Dynamo editor, you won't be seeing this. Let's see what happens if I run the code. Syntax error. You can use numbers when declaring a variable, but only after a alphabet is declared. You cannot say 1 2 3 hi, whereas you can say hi 1 2 3 without space. Okay, I hope this concept is clear. So this is how you create a variable. You give a name to the variable and then assign some value to it, and that value can be called anywhere. If you simply say hi and then don't assign a variable, assign a data to it, Python doesn't know what it is. And when you try to call something or when you try to use that variable, Python will give you results like hi is not defined, or the variable, the name which you created will tell you that that is not defined, which means that I know hi is there, but I don't have a value for this, so that I don't know what to give you back. That's the result you will get. So create a variable, assign some values, and the values could be different. If you put it inside quotation marks, that is string. If you say numbers directly, it is numbers. When it is whole numbers, we call it as integers. But when I say some decimal numbers, those things are called as float. As you can see, when I hover my mouse over, it is saying float. So what is the difference between integer and float? You guys know it already. When I say whole numbers, it is integer. When I say some fractional numbers or decimal numbers, it becomes float. In general, we call this as numbers, but there are some subdivisions for this when it comes to Python. So when I say print a, I'll just remove these things. So if I say print a, it will print 123.456. Yeah. So now can I perform operations like some additions, multiplication, subtraction? Can I do that? Can I say print 5 plus 5? Yes, I can do that. Can I say 5 into 5? Yes, I can do that. Can I do it with the help of variables? Can I say b is equals to 10 and then say c is equals to 25? Instead of adding 10 plus 25, can I say b plus c? Will this work? What do you think will be the output? Will it be b c, or it's directly b plus c, or will it be 35?
35.
Okay, let's try. Yes, it is 35. So like how it worked for printing, when I say print a, it doesn't print a, it prints the value of a. So when I say print b plus c, it will not print as b as bc. It will print the, it will add the value stored inside this variable and give you a result. What if I don't have a c inside this context and then say b plus c? What will be the result? Can anybody guess?
10 plus
N.
Sorry?
N.
error.
Error.
N.
Okay. Yes, it is an error. And what type of error? C is not defined, which means that I know B, but I don't know C. Can I say B plus 65? Will it work? One is variable and one is direct value.
Yes, it
Yes.
will work. 75.
Yes, you're right. It is 75. So irrespective of if I call a variable or if I call a number, the operation will be able to be performed. Okay. So same thing for other arithmetic operations likewise. So this is how variable behaves, and this is how you can perform operations over these variables. And one more thing you need to know is like condition statements. Okay, what is condition statements? In life, everything is going to be there in the condition. Like you might have used a lot of conditions if you are using Dynamo frequently. Conditions is like I have a certain condition. Maybe I am selecting certain elements, but I want only certain elements to be filtered out from the collection of list of elements. I'm selecting all the elements from this model, and then I have to filter all the elements with the elements which is belonging to only duct category. I have 1000 elements from this model, but I have to only filter ducts. So in that case, what I have to do is like I have to write an algorithm to check the condition. So you have to write a condition statement, say there. Say for example, the condition statement could be like, if the elements category is equal to duct, then give me this element, or else ignore this element. This is one example. So how to do those kind of condition statements? So if you are putting some conditions, how will you say in terms of an English grammar? If this, do that. Okay, this is how you pronounce it. If the key is available on the table, take it. So if certain thing is there, do this. Same thing follows inside Python. Nothing going to vary. You just have to say if, and then you have to specify the condition. Like if phi is greater than 2, this is the condition. If phi is greater than 2, but I should not stop with this condition. I have to put one more thing called as colon. And why it is needed? This is what we call it as syntax. There is a way you need to write a program. Okay, when I say hi, I have to say a is equals to hi. Only then it understands that the value hi is going to be assigned to a. Same way, when I say declare a condition statement, I should not simply say if hi is greater than 2. Python won't understand it. You have to add an addition, a colon at the end. If phi is greater than 2 and say colon at the end, and then go back to the next line, but don't write the condition at the beginning. You have to say tab space. Tab space is nothing but 4 space bars, 1 2 3 4. You can do it this way, or you can say simply one tab. It will go inside this condition. Now if phi is greater than 2, I will just remove this. If phi is greater than 2, print condition passed. Now tell me, will this condition pass will be printed here or not? Yes or no?
No,
Why?
because we are not giving it to a variable, assigned to a variable. I think we should, if write with the variables.
Okay, that might be a reason. Okay. Anybody else has any answer? Will it work or not? Or will it give you errors?
It will work.
Okay,
It will
let's
work.
try. Okay, let's try. Actually, it is working. It is printing condition passed and assigning it in the variable first, and then using that variables here is okay. That will also work, but it is not mandatory. I can say c is equals to 5 and d is equals to 2. Instead of comparing 5 is greater than 2, I can say c is greater than d. This will also work, whereas that one will also work. It is not necessary that you should do everything in terms of variables. You can do it directly with values, but it is good that you can also use variables by here. Okay, so now let me change some values. Now I say d as 20. Now it is going to check phi is greater than 20, and if that condition is passed, it will print condition passed. Now tell me, will this condition be executed or not? Yes or no?
It will not work.
Yes, but it won't give you errors. As you can see, it has printed nothing, but it doesn't give you errors. Why? Because the condition which you checked is not passed. So that is the reason it is not printing. So if this condition fails,
So we
yeah, please go ahead. You were about to ask
so
something.
So we have to use else statement also along with if we have to print if the condition statement is wrong. So
Hmm.
we have to use else statement
Yeah.
along with the if
Yes.
statement.
So if this condition is failing, I have to give an alternate thing that this needs to do. That is where we come across something called as else. If C is greater than D, print condition passed, or else print failed. Okay. Now let's see what happens. Now it is printing failed. Now if I change this to 50, now again the condition is passed, so it will print condition passed. This is what if and else conditions are used for. This is the syntax. You need to use if, say a condition, put colon at the end, and then go to the next line, use tab space, and then specify the condition that need to be executed when the condition is passed, and or else if the condition is going to be false or it is going to fail here, give another else condition. So if this fails, go to this. Okay. So this is more like speaking, if this is there, do this, or else do this. Same way, but you have to put a colon at the end, and then you have to remember with this indentation. And this is nothing but the syntax. This is a Python syntax. Okay. Everybody understood what is a variable, and everybody clear with how to write a if condition? Just tell me yes or no.
Yes.
Okay. We shall
Yes.
now go into direct Revit concepts. This is just an introduction of Python. With this time, we can just see this. There is a lot more things inside this Python to learn, but for now it is enough. With whatever we learned inside this Python, we are going to see how to execute that within the Revit context and write your own Revit API code. Okay. So I created a Python script here. I will show you how I did it. I right click on the screen and then start typing Python. I can see the first option is saying Python script. If I click on this, I will be able to create a Python script node. Okay. Now I have to write my Python code inside this Dynamo. Till this moment, I have been using an external editor for writing it, but I can't use that editor to write code and then use it inside Dynamo. I have to write code directly inside Dynamo so that Dynamo understands it. So I will just open this by double clicking on this, or else I can right click on the screen and then right click on this node so that you can see the node is highlighted, and then say edit, or else double tap on this empty space. This will open this. So if you are opening this Python script for the very first time in your PC, you won't be able to see all these code by default. This is some predefined setting which I made as a template code. Consider this as a template code. We call this in the programming world, we call this as boilerplate code. Nothing but we are importing a lot of references to write a well executable code. If you open a Revit file, if you create a new file, it will give you options like select a template, a construction, architectural, electrical, mechanical, structural. If you choose one of the template, what it will do, it will preload you with values or preload with certain families. By default, some views will be created. By default, some sheets might be created. Some families will be loaded. So you don't have to start from the scratch. That is the concept of loading a template. Same way, this code is also a template. You don't have to know each and every bit of this for writing a very good Python code. It is good that you know that, but at the beginning stage, just ignore all these things. Just consider like you are going to write the code inside this between this transaction starting and transaction ending. If you write a code inside this, it will work. Okay. So let's start writing our code and we shall see how to give an input and then how to get an output. Okay. I can do the same thing. I created some variables over there. I said a is equals to 1, 2, 3. Here I don't have the print statement. Either I should put the variable inside this out a, like how I printed a. If I say out a, I can run the script from here or either here. If I run the code, you can see the output is 1, 2, 3. If I change this 1, 2, 3 to hello, there I printed hello. Here I should say out is equals to a. Now out is equals to hello. That's the only difference. You can't use print here. Okay. So you already know how to create a variable and you know the data types and kind of that concepts. Now we will see what is Revit API. Where should you find the Revit API and how could you use it? Okay, I have a Revit API documentation open already. And where will you find it? If you just go to Google and then start typing Revit API docs, the very first link you see is the Revit API documentation. This is how a Revit API doc would look like. Okay, I can start typing whatever I want. For now, we will see some element operations, how to perform some operations on element. If I say element, there is a drop down which is letting me to select something from it. I select element class. And don't worry what is a class and what is a namespace and what are all these things are. This is something you have to know to write a code, but you're going to find all the commands here. And these are the commands which is being written inside a normal Dynamo code with how it is working. Okay, there is a lot of properties. For every class, there will be properties and methods. And what is a property, what is a method, and what is a class? I shall give you a very simple example. Like you are the person, I am a person, you have some values, right? As a person, you have a name. Someone comes to you and then asks you what's your name, you will tell your name. What's your age, you will tell you. What's your salary, you will tell you. If you ask do you own a bike, you will tell you. If you own a bike, yes, I own this model of bike. So these are all the values which you possess. So you are the class, you possess some values. Those values are called as properties. Okay, name is a property of you. Same way, name is a property of an element. ID is a property of an element. ID is nothing but element ID of a element ID of an element. Geometry is a property of an element. If someone asks for the geometry from the element, it will give its geometry. If it is a wall, it will give the solid wall. If it is a duct, it will give you a hollow duct. Same way, document is a property. So I hope you are clear with the property. Every class will have its own value stored into it, but the values are stored inside some fields. You have a name, and that name is having a value. If someone calls you, if someone calls me and then asks me for my name, I say Bhuvan. So name is a property, and then the name is having a value. Same way, element is a class, element is having a property name, and that name will have a value. Okay, then what is methods? Methods is nothing but the actions you could perform. I could walk, I could sleep, I could drive a bike, I could drive a car, I could listen, I could take classes, I can drink water, I can eat. All these things are actions performed by me. Okay, the values which I possess by myself is what I call it as properties. The actions which I could perform are called as methods. So the same thing is applied here. Element is a class, element is having certain properties. When called for the property, it will give you direct data. When you call for the element and then ask the element to do some operation, create element, update parameter, set parameter, highlight the element, delete the element, copy the element, move the element, all these things are the actions performed by the element. Those things are called as methods. So you will have a class will have property, and class will have methods. When called for property, you will get values. When called for methods, the class will perform some operation for you. So if you know this concept, you already know a very extensive concept called as object oriented programming. This is as simple as that. So now we shall see how to use this property and how to call this property and how to call these methods. The ultimate goal for today is like we are going to use these properties and then going to get a parameter and set a parameter. By the end of today's session, you will know this. How to do it inside a Python code. You might have already know how to do it in a Dynamo node. We will see the equivalent of it in a Revit API code. Okay. So a element is having a property name. So I should have element. I should call the property name from an element. How shall I do it? So I should have an element first. I already have an element collected from this select model element node. I can give this as an input. If I give it as an input, as you can see, it is called as in0. In is nothing but input, and the square bracket and 0 representing it. It is the first value of the list of inputs. I can add n number of inputs. And see, this is the first value, second value, third input, fourth input, fifth input, and sixth input. But the values start from 0 rather than 1. In human counting, we start from 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whereas when it comes to system counting, it starts from 0. So the 0th input is the first input from our case. So the first input is we are connecting the element which we got, and that is being stored inside this element. Now element is becoming a variable. This could be anything. This could be a wall. This could be just E, anything, like how I said A is equals to hi, A is equals to 1 2 3. Here I am receiving an element as input. I am storing it inside a variable, and the variable name is up to you. For now, since I selected a wall element, I say wall. So let's verify. If I say output is equals to wall, what do you think will be the output? Anyone?
Element
It will be
ID
class.
345437.
Okay, okay, let's try. Yes, you are right. It is giving you element ID, but it's not just element ID, it's a direct wall. You can see the very similarities between these two things. This, when I use this node, I got a wall element along with this element ID. I gave that as an input, and then I outputted the same thing which I got as an input. So both these things are same. I passed this value inside this Python, and now I verified this, that value has been successfully passed. Now it's up to me to perform operations over this element. Okay, and there are some restrictions on how to do it. Okay, so very basic thing, you know how you understand what is a class, and the class is having a attribute. Like you have a property called as name. Okay, consider yourself in this case. Will you go if you start walking inside a street, will you tell your name to everybody you are seeing in that street? Then people will start thinking that you have lost your mind. Why is this guy telling his name all this way along? That's not a good practice. You should tell your name, or you should display the data only you are asked for it. When you meet someone or when you greet someone, say hi, good morning, my name is Bhuvan, what's yours? When someone is asking your name, only then you will tell your name. So it is not correct to for the class to represent its properties or values without asking it. So now I have an element class. Wall is an element, and I know wall is having a property called as name. But how will I get it? So I have to ask this class. See element, I want your name. Just tell me what is your name. Okay, how will I ask it? If you are a human, you just say it vocally, or you just write it down and then say ask for what is your name. Here when it comes to program, there is something called as dot operator. Okay, when I have to say wall, when I have to get the property name, I have to say wall dot name. And observe closely, when it comes to name, I have to say n in capital letters. Exact same name with which the property described here. And you can see a description written. If I say element dot name, it will give a human readable name of an element. Before that, let me just verify. The name of the wall is generic 200 mm. Let me go to Dynamo. Now I have said wall dot name. Now if I run the code, it is giving me generic 200 mm. So I have utilized the property on an element by asking it. And how do I know there is a property called as name over the element? I need to refer this Revit API documentation. Everything is documented here. You just need to know which class you should look for and what property you should look for. If you understood the logic behind that, you are feel free to you are capable of writing any code. You just need to figure out the logic, and you need to find a command. Just call for the command. Okay, if I call wall.name but with n small letters, do you guys think it will work? Just give me yes or no.
No, error.
Yes, it gives an error. Let's see what error it is. Wall object has no attribute name. So which means like you are calling a name attribute on a wall, but I don't know what attribute the name which is starting with small n. I don't know what attribute it is. I just know name with starting from capital letters. So be very sure that when you call for properties or when you call for methods, you have to specify the exact same name described in the Revit API documentation. Wall.name will give you the wall.name. Can I call any other property? There is something called as ID. Can I call wall.id? 345437, same ID. What if I say wall.id with small I? Again, will it work? Yes or no? We just now saw it.
No.
No.
And what type of error? No such attribute available. So be clear with this. When you call for attributes or properties, use the exact same casings with which it is being described. ID starts with I, name starts with N. All the properties will start with capital letters. Okay. Okay, let's see. There is a property called as pinned, and what is the description given here? Identifies if the element has been pinned to prevent changes. I hope you guys all know what is pinned. For every element can be pinned. If you click on an element, there is an option for you to pin. If you pin this element, you can't move the element because it will prevent the element from any location changes. And you can again unpin those things, and after that you are feel free to, you can move that element wherever you want. Okay, so we are going to check if this element is pinned or not from Dynamo. So element is a class. That element is having a property. We just saw two properties, name and ID. Same way pinned is also a property. Like you have a property, like if someone comes to you and asks, did you have your breakfast? There is an answer, yes or no. Same way, when I ask, is this element pinned or not? It is giving me an answer, either true or false. If I say element dot pinned, will it work? Yes or no?
No.
Why?
No,
Yes.
Because
he
Because
is
of the
not
small.
pinned.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys are very clear with this concept. Great. So false. Let's just verify it. I'm just checking this element. Yes, it is not pinned. Now I shall pin that element. Now go back to Dynamo. Again I run the script. Now it has been pinned. True. So this element is pinned now. So these values, there are a lot of values like this. You can get the location of it, you can get the document out of it, you can get the geometry, you can get the unique ID. You can say on and on. All these things are documented here. You can see what workset it belongs to, what are all the parameters it is having. When it comes to Dynamo nodes, only certain functionalities from here could be utilized. But when it comes to Revit API documentation, there are over 1700 classes. Each and every class is having nearly 20 to 30 properties and 20 to 30 methods by on its own. Just imagine if it is possible to give all these functionalities with just Dynamo nodes. Absolutely no. Only because of that, they gave access to this documentation by giving you a Python node. I can't provide you all features by myself. So use this Python node to this access this documentation and utilize the feature whatever you want. Use this documentation to do class deduction. Use this documentation to do Excel imports. Use this documentation to open models, to export IFC, export NWC, whatever you want you do. So this is one such example. Okay, now I just checked if the wall has been pinned or not. Can I set this property from this Dynamo? How will I know if this property can be set or not? If I try to open this pinned, identifies if the element has been pinned. This option will return you a bool. Does anybody know what is a bool? Bool is nothing but a true or false value. Bool is a data type, like how string is a data type, number, integer, float is a data type. Bool is also a data type. True or false is what we call it as a boolean data type. So this the return type will be bool. So when I call element.pin, either it will give me true or false, nothing other than that. And this property can be get as well as set. This is how you decode the documentation. You saw a property called as pin, you know what it will do, you know what it will return when called, you know this can be get as well as set. How am I going to set it? So I should write my code inside this transaction for it to work. So I say element.pint, wall.pint. I can assign values. I can say true with the t caps. Oh, it is already set to true. Now maybe I will set it to false. So I'm going to unpin it. Wall.pinned is equals to false. I can check wall.pinned as a result here. Now it is, let's just verify it is pinned. You can see the pin symbol. I can't move it. Now I'm going to Dynamo. Now I'm saying wall.pin property to set to a new value false. Now the wall.pin is becoming false. check that in Dynamo. Revit, you will be able to move it, which means that not only getting properties from elements, there is a possibility for you to set the properties back. But how will you know that? You just need to know how to read the documentation. What properties you have, what will be the return type, will the property be get and set. Can you set a element.id? There is an element ID by default for every element. Like how I did for pinned, can I say element.id is equals to my own number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Is it possible?
No.
That is not possible in Revit, same way that is not possible in Revit API. That doesn't make any sense. How will you know that? You have a property called as ID. That ID property will return an element ID, but that ID is a property with which you can only get values from. You cannot set values on this property ID, whereas in pinned it was. Clear how properties work? Any doubts with properties till now? Just give me yes or no.
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 Fine.
Okay, great.
It's fine.
Yeah, perfect, perfect.
Okay, great. So you know where this property is available, what will be the return when you call a property, and you know how to set a property back and to check whether the property can be set back. Every property by default will be get, but only certain properties will allow you to set it back to Revit. Okay, now we shall see how to get parameter and how to set parameter. And there is one more thing you need to know. If you try to do some operations like, if I remove this, outside the transaction, if I say wall dot, I think wall with small letters I wrote it, yes, wall dot pinned is equal to true. If I try to do it, it gives an operation like, okay, this might, I can pass on anything. If I try to do it, okay, generally it doesn't work, because when you try to do it outside a transaction, it won't work, because you're trying to make a modification to the element. Modifications to the element will only work when you do it inside this transaction. That is how transaction works. You can just remove this for now. Now we shall see how to get a parameter. I hope everybody knows how to get parameters from Dynamo. There is a node called as get parameter value by name. You shall present a parameter here, and then you shall give the name of the parameter. Say for example, if comments is a parameter, I shall give some values to here, maybe wall 001. So this wall is having a comment. Now if I go back to Dynamo, if I present this element and then the parameter name comments, if I run this code, this shall give me the value stored inside this comments parameter. Okay, how shall we do the same thing here? Go back to documentation, search for something which will get parameters for you. You have a method called as lookup parameter. Attempts to find a parameter on element which has a given name. Open this lookup parameter. So this will return a parameter, and it requires what parameter you're looking for as an argument. This is a method. Like if I just point you and then say take that, the very first thing you will ask me like take what? You should be specific in that case. If we say lookup parameter, Revit will ask which parameter, and how will you pass the data to that? You have to specify which parameter you are asking for, because that is how you do it in Dynamo. You would not just give element, you specify which parameter you are looking for. Same thing follows here. I should say wall dot lookup parameter, and I should say brackets. This is the difference between methods and properties. Properties should be called directly, whereas method should have a open and close curly bracket at the end. Okay, if I say so, this will give me errors asking me the lookup parameter takes one argument, 0 given. What argument it takes? It takes the name of the parameter. It is same error which you will get if you didn't provide this run parameter name. It is just giving you a function, it is not giving you the value. This element is having a lot of parameter. You just need to specify which parameter you are looking for. Same way, I just need to say wall.lookup parameter, but specify the name of the parameter which you are looking for. In this case, it is comments, and then put it in terms of string. Same way how you do it here. The parameter name should be given in terms of string. As you can see, the value type of it is called as string, and in the documentation also it is given the name of the parameter should be given in terms of string. Now you should do so. Here I got the value, but here I don't get the value. Instead, I get the parameter. How will I get the name of the or the value stored inside this parameter? How do I get it? You guys know what is a storage type for a parameter? A parameter, when you create a share parameter or a project parameter, it will ask for you what storage type it is. It is a text or a length or a yes or no parameter. There are different things, length, area. Okay, same way when it comes to this, inside this Revit lookup, Revit API, you have to specify what type of value you need to get out of the parameter. In this case, comments is a text parameter, so that is a string. So instead of saying wall.lookup parameter comments, you should addition say as string. As string is a method on the parameter class, and that gives you a result wall001. Wall.lookup parameter pass the parameter name, which will give you a parameter, not the parameter value. You have to specify what type of parameter you are looking for. If that is a text parameter, you have to say as string, whereas if that is something from the base offset, could be like, I would just say base offset is 500. So this is a value. If I go back to Dynamo and then start typing base offset here instead of comments base offset, if I say as string, the value will be null, because base offset is a number parameter. When it comes to number, there is nothing called a string. It has to be said as double. Again, double is a data type. Double is a C# data type, not a Python data type. In Python, we call it as float, but Revit API is written in C#, whereas C# is a programming language. You can see the Boolean syntax is whatever you are seeing here is from C#. This is how you call a C#. While pronouncing, you say C#, but while writing, you have to say C * symbol. And this is a programming language developed by Microsoft, with which the application Revit has been developed, and also the documentation for its automation has also been done with this C#. So when I say as double, it gives you values, but again, it should give me, when I say base offset here, it should give me 500. But 1.640. Does anybody know why? Does anybody have experience with this already? As double. Okay, let me just store it inside a variable for now. I will just say you value is equal to, I will cut this code and then paste it over here and then say value 1.64, and this is 500 mm. 1 feet is equals to 304.8 mm. 500 mm is equal to 1.64042. 1.64042, not 42 exactly. When you round it off, it is 042. Revit API will always deal in values of feet. You have to convert it if you wanted to see it with the value you are interested in. You have to say 304.8. If you multiply it, it will give you the value correctly. But every time when you get values and set values, it will be by default in terms of feet. For string values, no problem, it is just an alphabet. But when it is a number value, it is in terms of feet always. Wall dot lookup parameter, by passing the name of the parameter, will give you parameter. If it is a string, you have to say as string. If it is a number, you have to say as double. And again, if you say as double, it will convert the value to feet and then give you the result. Based upon the type of unit you use in your project, you have to type convert it. Even though if you use imperial, it is already always in feet. It won't give you values with combination of feet and inches. Always feet with decimal numbers. It won't tell you 2 feet 3 inches. Not like that. Precise feet values. You have to convert it to your unit convenience always. And this Dynamo node is taking care of all these unit conversions and all. Whereas when you do it in Python, you have to do it yourself. Don't be afraid of it. Like I could have directly used this node instead. No, there is a lot of other things you can do with this lookup parameter if you know these things. This is just a stepping stone, like a starting point. You have to know how Revit API behaves. Once you know this, once you had control over this, you can do things, a lot of interesting things with this. Okay, we just know how to get a value. Let me just break down into two. Let it be comments for now. And then that is the parameter. The value is parameter dot as string. So if I say parameter, the result will be a parameter. If I say value, the value stored in the parameter will be displayed. Okay, now you know how to get parameter. Now we shall see how to set parameter. So you have to set value on this parameter. So parameter, the parameter stored in this variable called as parameter. If you don't want very brief values, you can just say param. And again, this is just whatever you provide as variables. It is nothing with the standard things. Don't think like you should always call it as parameter, you should always call it as value. No, no, no. It depends on the user who is writing the code. The thing that is always suggested is put it into meaningful names, because when you look this code after like months, you should be able to understand what you did in this particular line. I can simply say p is equals to wall dot lookup parameter. Suddenly you won't get what p means. You have to say parameter is equals to wall dot lookup parameter, so that when revisiting this code, okay, I got the parameter here and I got the value in this variable. That makes sense. So that in the future, if you wanted to make some enhancements, you can do it easily. So now coming back to set, there is a property, there is a method called as param.set, and I can set some values to it. So to this commands, I am setting a new value. Let's say new value is set. So this exact sentence is going to be entered inside this comments. If I go to this wall, you can see instead of wall 001, it is changed to new value dot set. Very simple. When I say lookup parameter, I got a parameter class. If I click on this parameter class, what are all the methods did I use? As string, as double, set. All these things, where did I get from? Everything is in this documentation. How element is a class, parameter is also a class. How element is having a name property, parameter is having a method called as string, as double, set parameter, get parameter. All these things are again need to be done over the parameter class. That's it. You can get parameter by saying lookup parameter and passing the name. You can set it back by just saying dot set and then passing the values whatever you need to set. Okay. What if I try to attempt to do this set outside transaction? Please do work. Okay, some problem with Dynamo today. Generally don't work. If I try to restart Dynamo, at times it might stuck at some places. You are trying to modify the document, and the modification of this document should be only done inside this transaction. You can get parameters outside the transaction, whereas you can't set parameters. You can get parameters here. I try to set it. Okay, for now, I hope you understand the concept. Since even though it doesn't work here, sometimes at the live demonstration, it used to embarrass you, embarrass you by doing such stuffs. But Dynamo is there are some problems with Dynamo at times. It won't give you exact results how it is was intended to give. Just understand the concept, like you can't modify the document or do modifications to this document, setting values back outside transaction. Any doubts with this? How to get and set values?
No, it's fine.
Yeah, today was just a brief session. We just introduced to you what is Python language and showed you how easy it is to learn. And then coming back to Revit, writing your Revit API code. I told you where should you find this Revit API documentation. I told you how to read this documentation, how to get and set values. If you have no knowledge of any of this before coming to this class, now you know the basics. It will be easy for you now to do either self-learning or to do some refer some videos or even join some training sessions. You are not going to start from zero from now on. You know the basics. I hope you know the basics, or at least whatever we covered today. So that's it for the topic for this session. If you would like to join for the wholesome training, you are most welcome to join. You can contact the BIM Era website and then provide your details. Our administrator will contact you and then we'll explain you regarding this course. If you have any, if you need an information, you can just write it to email ID info@bimera.co. So that's it for today. I would like to hear some valuable feedback from you. How was this session? Basically, is this useful or something could be changed?
It's very useful. Can I ask you one question?
Yeah, please go ahead.
As a BIM automation expert, what should be your exact roles and what kind of applications you created by using these scripting for your own, just for information, not
Yeah,
in
yeah, I
brief.
understand. Okay, there
If
are
you can
different
tell.
levels. Start with Dynamo first. If you not know Dynamo, just learn Dynamo first. Learn to play with these nodes, and then learn Python next to it. Try to write all as much as code inside this Python. If you are convenient with this Python, you are able to do automation inside Revit. And then if you this Dynamo is mainly lacking with the user interface. You run the script always, some action is performed. It is not like interactive between Dynamo to Revit and back to Revit and Dynamo. So if you wanted to do some interactions like that, you have to go to add-ins and you can again create add-ins, but you have to know a programming language called as C sharp. Add-ins are written with C sharp. So if you know C sharp, you can create add-ins. And there is a lot more. If you know AI, artificial intelligence and machine learning, you can incorporate it in here. If you know how to create a web application, there is something called as Autodesk Forge. If you might not heard it, just search for Autodesk Forge. There are a lot of DevCon sessions. You can use those Forge APIs to write your own web applications. There is a lot in this stream, but start from zero. Start from Dynamo. It will be easy for you to continue.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks you. Any other
Thank
questions?
you.
Any feedback?
Very nice explanation, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So,
sir. Thanks a
can
lot.
I ask you?
Yeah,
Can I
yeah,
ask you one more question?
yeah, please.
When we are talking about standardization of the BIM processes as a
Hmm.
BIM manager,
Hmm.
so where can we use these kind of Python scripting or maybe kind of programming into it?
Okay.
Because if you see, we have to follow the standards.
Yeah.
Like if you are aware of ISO or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
PAS, so there are so many repetitive things that we have to be figure out, and then we have to set according to our customize as per our requirement or
Yeah.
company's requirement.
Yeah.
How do we get beneficial from this?
Actually, this is the platform where you could most utilize when it comes to standardization. You can have standard families. You define how modeling principles should work. You have some engineering calculation principles. You have standard deliverables. So all these things need to be taken care manually till the time. There need to be some QA QCs done. All these QCs and can be taken care by this Dynamo. if all the families belong to having standard parameters, if all the CC classifications or the mandatory codes for this family instances are entered, if the quantities are taken care properly, all these things can be verified from here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other doubts in today's session?
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, is there any Revit API for C Sharp web training? Webinar is there in future? Maybe you will
Yeah,
conduct or?
yeah, we will.
Yeah, okay, fine. That's a good news.
Yeah, sure we will.
Yeah, because of we are actually doing Revit API from C Sharp.
Okay.
Little bit knowledge only the Python and then C Sharp only.
Okay.
So I don't know where to exactly start from the C Sharp. I can play with the Python it's a very easy
Yeah.
in case of C Sharp.
Yeah.
So I don't know because of some of nodes are created from the C Sharp. Because of most of the packages are created from the C Sharp only. Some of the packages only created the Dynamo Python packages.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's exactly going on the C Sharp. So is there any webinar for a C Sharp?
Yeah, we will conduct in the future. We do
Okay, fine.
organize
Thank
trainings for C# already, so we are planning to do that.
Okay.
In the future, we might
Okay.
expect that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions related to today or in general? Anything?
No, it's good for me. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, hi. One question.
Yeah.
Can we use the IntelliSense within Dynamo Python scripting?
Yeah, it depends upon what version of Dynamo you are using. The version of Dynamo which I use is 2.3, so which had some improved IntelliSense. Whereas if you use 2.0, you might lack with some IntelliSense. If you use 2.5 and 2.8, you might get some more IntelliSense. But Dynamo editor is very poor in terms of IntelliSense, whereas you compare to Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code.
Yeah, but can we add this Revit API namespaces to the Visual Studio Code, and can we use the namespaces there?
Yeah, we can. There is a method to do it. There
Okay,
is
fine.
one more Python code which will take the script directly. You can write it in the Visual Studio Code and then store the file somewhere. You can get the file path, get the file, and then provide that file as input here. So whenever you make changes to the Visual Studio Code over there and save it, you can come back here, refresh the code, and then write it. If you are focusing majorly on IntelliSense, that is one possible way.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes. Yeah.
Actually, I have one question.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility where suppose we have developed one C# plugin, okay, in the Revit? So with that we can call that Python script. And is there a possibility to do some linking between C# plugin and the Python script?
I don't think so. I don't think it is possible.
Because see, why I'm asking some reason behind that, because somehow in the C#.NET, suppose we have to collect information from the multiple means lot of elements in structural column or structural element, whatever it is there, and which having some multiple properties and also area volume, so that we have to retrieve okay from the base file. Along with that, there are multiple linked model also in the parent document.
Okay.
So that will be the use data. So if we try to get it with the C# plugin, then it is taking around 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depend upon the how much elements with it. So, but as per my understanding, because I am the C# developer, okay, Revit APIs.
Okay.
But Dynamo, it is performance wise, it is very fast. Dynamo.
Do you think so?
Maybe. Yeah, but same maybe that Python scripting also very much fast. So what I'm expecting
I'll tell
that, is
you
there
what
any
from my
possibility there?
experience. Dynamo is way slow as compared to C#. When you compile your code into add-in is faster. If you try to do the same process from Dynamo, it's quite slow. If you
No,
feel
but
that the process is taking a lot of time, try to
uh,
refactor the C sharp code. The way you write the code, you should dispose the code at times. Like you should not store memory slot and cache. If you use some filtered element collectors over there, if you use for each
mhm,
loops over there, don't use for each. Use while loops. Use iterators. Element. You get enumerators and then use iterators. There is a statement called as using
yes.
statement. I know people who are listening to this. If you don't know C sharp, that could be complex. Just ignore these things.
Mhm.
Like try to do some refactoring to your code to make it more robust. Just a piece
Yes,
of
yeah, yeah. So I'm just interested in Dynamo. So maybe if
yeah,
performance
yeah, yeah.
wise,
Performance wise, there is a slight lag when it compared to Dynamo and C sharp add-in. Add-in is
mm-hmm.
faster as compared to Dynamo, at
Yes,
least
yes,
from my
yes.
experience.
Okay, okay, okay. But that's great. Actually,
Yeah,
it's good you are providing this kind of training. So I'm also very much interested.
yeah. Thank you. Please do provide the feedback over the
Yeah.
link that has been shared in the chat box.
Yes, yes, yes.
It
I'm
will be very
always in
helpful
touch with
for us.
yes, admin person. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions? No? Then I would like to take this moment to thank everybody for patiently listening to this session and attending this session. If you wish to join our full training, just ping us on the website. So we will get back to you on that. So thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Very much.
Thank you.